Hi, this is Jacob Wells on the Event Hub content team. You're about to listen to a live audio recording from a panel on event tech trends, moderated by our CEO, Michael Bleau, for the California Festivals and Events Association's annual conference in February of 2020. Visit eventhub.net for more educational content and for more info about Event Hub's partnership marketplace and management platform for live events.
I am Michael Bleau, co-founder and CEO of Event Hub, so thanks for coming. Event Hub, we've been around for about 5 years. We work with more than 500 annual festivals, fairs, expos, sporting events like marathons, tries. And it is a partnership marketplace to help you find new sponsorship, vendor, exhibitor partners, and then a management software system that allows you to streamline and really accelerate the whole process of all of your applications, payments, paperwork, logistics, live floor plans, and those types of tools. So without further ado, we're going to get into the panel. We're going to cover 3 areas concerning event tech today. It's what I call the what, the why, and the how. So what are the new trends out there that we see that we're very excited about with event technology? How do you determine, or rather, why should you use them for your event? How do you determine the ROI threshold where it makes sense to pull the trigger? And then how do you go about implementing those? What are some best practices when you're onboarding and implementing new technology and really integrating it within your event organization? All right, guys, so let's kick it off. Well, why don't we just start left to right to start, and then we can kind of freeform from there, and we'll start with the topic. What are some of the most exciting trends in event tech and some of the new technologies out there that you're excited about?
You want me to start?
Sure. That's great.
Left, right. I would say one of the new technologies that I'm pretty excited about is developments in live streaming. Not only from like a production standpoint, one of the clients that was mentioned in my intro, Wuxi AppTech, is a global pharmaceutical company and with headquarters in China and big operations in Germany and London. And so producing an event like in San Francisco where this JP Morgan medical conference that they're part of, not everyone can attend, it's not even affordable. The guest rooms in that city during this conference are like astronomical. So it gives us an opportunity to showcase the information, kind of fulfill some of the goals that they're trying to do, whether it's related to sales or marketing, to kind of cast a wider audience. But I also feel like from a personal standpoint for myself in seeking education like you guys are today, there are a lot more conferences that are offering like a virtual ticket where you can be part of the live stream or you can have like the virtual ticket because maybe it's too expensive, or like I have young kids, so traveling a lot, it's like not very reasonable for me to go to all these conferences, but that educational component is something you don't want to miss, so you can't physically be there. And I think that there's great strides being made for the virtual ticket or the live streaming element.
How many of you guys do some kind of live streaming component to your events? Quick show of hands. Great. And by the way, while I'm here, I want to find out a little bit more about the makeup of you guys. So how many of you do ticketed events? Okay, how many of you guys do non-ticketed free attendance events? All right. How many of you do music-related, music festivals? And what about food and beverage? What about expos that wouldn't qualify for either of those first 2 things? Perfect, thank you. That'll help us kind of tailor our conversation as we go about it. Yeah.
All right, well, I was thrown on this panel the other day, so I don't have all this high tech. I'm a tech challenge person. I come from Auburn, California, up out of Sacramento, rinky-dinky town, small, the hamster still runs the internet. And so we've been very slow at adapting to trends, techniques, new things to make life simpler. So last year, after CalFest convention, I decided I needed to make my life easier, so we shredded paper. So for the first time in 25 years, we went paperless for our applications and sent shockwaves to all of my vendors because I deal with little craft ladies and farmers, and that computers are something of foreign being to them. So we went through quite a challenge going online, paperless applications. And ticket-wise, we We sell tickets to the event. We only did a little bit of pre-sale, and we did roll tickets that you went to the ticket booth, you got a ticket, you went to the gate, we collected it after the event. We counted all the tickets that were sold, we counted all the tickets that were redeemed at the gates, all the comp tickets, and we spent weeks and weeks counting those to balance all those things because that's what we did. We don't have the giant budget of all this crazy stuff, but we did make that move, and we're going to be talking about the ROI of making these moves, and I have to say that a week or 2 weeks before my festival, which is in November, I took a 10-day cruise to Hawaii, and I managed only because we were in port every day. But because I went paperless and everything could be done on the computer, I could manage and still make my phone calls and deal with all my vendors from the lanai on my ship. So that was kind of nice. When I came back, I was much more relaxed and I didn't end up in the hospital afterwards. And so everyone's like, wow, you're really like mellow this year. And I said, well, stuff's kind of done. So making that move of, you don't have to do live streaming and all that stuff, but just making, for craft vendors and craft shows, making that move to paperless is kind of crazy.
That's fantastic. And one thing I'd love to ask as a follow-up is, because we hear this a lot when people talk about going paperless, did you lose any significant amount of revenue from partnerships from someone who refused to do it online?
Well, no, I didn't lose any vendors. I sent out a letter to all of my vendors that we were making this change to going online, and that these were my office hours for the next 2 weeks, and I would be available, that they could call me and I could walk them through the process. And I had people that hated me, I had people that cussed me out, and it was a learning experience for me. When I took this on, I said, I'm a stupid person. I will admit it up front. I am not computer savvy. I can figure out Facebook. I don't understand Instagram, so I don't know what any of that is and all those things. And so I was able to walk people through, because I went in and set up my own account to walk through and see all the steps that they were going to take. If I could figure it out, I figured most people could follow that. There were some people that were challenged. I spent 40 minutes on the phone as the little craft lady couldn't figure out what email address she used to log into her account. And then you just get to the point where, here, let me just do it for you and I'll enter it, because there's a way that I can enter it from my side. And you just make that decision that it's just going to be easier for me to say, okay, we'll just walk through it and I'll enter it for you. So I did do some of those for people. But that's okay with me, because before they would mail me an application, I would have to sit there and type it into my computer program and file it in folders and binders and all that stuff. So people still hate me, but I keep telling people more and more people are going to paperless and online application forms, and you know what, we just have to adapt. And so, as long as you have a good event, they'll do it, because either they're going to do it and participate, or they're going to go someplace else and not participate.
Right. I bet you didn't feel too bad about it when you were sipping Mai Tais on vacation before your event.
Not at all.
That's great.
But I did coach one vendor that had never done an event before, that she had a 10x10 booth and wanted to put in 4 consultants, 3 tables, and 4 banners in her booth. So 30 minutes on the ship, I had to educate her on how to set up a booth. So.
Yeah. And that's more, you're actually business coaching almost more
than business coaching, but
that's nice.
But that's what you do.
Yeah.
When you're not managing paperwork, you have time to talk to people on the phone.
Right. That's awesome. Build relationships. John, I'd love to hear what's new and hip in ticketing technology and any other technologies that you've seen come across your radar.
Yeah, sure. So I'd say for us, like we're on a lot of these panels, and people talk about technology, and they talk about AR, and they talk about VR, and they talk about these things. And I think if I'm being honest, what I'm most excited about technology is just that it simplifies things. And the better technology, in our view, the simpler the process is, and trying to remove, we spend a lot of time thinking about how to remove the friction from the process, whether it's buying a ticket, whether it's scanning someone in, all those kind of things. So I think, like, honestly, my number one thing I'm most excited about where technology goes is that as it gets better and better, that it becomes simpler for all of us. Probably and we've heard this for a long time, but I think the thing that as an event organizer, probably mobile is what we're most excited about. We see 65-70% of our ticket sales now coming through mobile. Everybody has a computer in their pocket that's probably faster than the large computers or even 7 or 8 years ago. So we're excited about, in fact, Gary and I were talking a bit about using text technology. And so we've seen some events where they have promoted we've given them a phone number that they have then their attendees can text ticks to it or whatever they want to do. We'll send back the ticket form. So they're seeing, instead of people waiting in line at box offices, they're buying them in the parking lot, they're buying them on the shuttle buses. And what's happening in that process too is that you're also getting all the customer data. So we are really excited about data, where data's going, what you can use as far as smart data. We're building a whole CRM platform so you can really know your customers. There's some technology that we're laying on top of that so you can really have a deep dive into who the customer is, aside from just basic demographics, but really understanding who's actually coming to your event and how do you target other folks who are similar to that. So that's something that we're excited about. Even the text communication to attendees from a platform is something that we're working on. So I would say mobile is a big piece of it, but also when we think about that process, that when somebody's going to buy a ticket online, there's some really easy add-ons that you can add that'll really enhance your event. So when I ran live events, we were really passionate about our sponsors and some of the things that we could do there. And so being able to control that ticketing process and being able to pull even sponsor information into that, we've seen that be really successful. For example, an event that we ran in the summer, we had Verizon Wireless was one of our sponsors. And so what they were trying to say is, how are we going to measure if we're having any impact? And so we just had a simple question. It was optional to find out what wireless carrier they were on. And we were able to then give Verizon back a report and say, you have 35% of the market, and what feels like a success? Can we grow that to 40% of the market over 3 years, whatever it was, but be able to give them that opportunity. Or we had some sponsors where they wanted to just have an opt-in. So it was a title sponsor, and on the form, can you opt them in to receive additional messages from Mazda, whoever that sponsor is, to be able to put them on the tickets. And so sponsor integration, I think, is big for us. So we're seeing that's not necessarily a cutting-edge technology, but an easy way to grow the sponsorship value. In addition to just add-ons, so we find merchandise sales or any kind of upgrades that you want to do in that process, that when people have their credit card out and they're excited about the event, we find they're about 20% more likely to add something to that purchase. So I run an event in the summer, and we started doing our merchandise sales online with the registration. We saw our overall merchandise for the year grow by about 20%, and part of that was just because they're excited about the event and able to add some of those things. So really long-winded answer, but I would say if I had to say the biggest things that we are excited about as a company with technology, it is simplicity and making the process as simple as we can for our customers and for the ticket buyers, and then just mobile, and how do we really maximize the mobile experience, both for you and the communication with the customer.
That's great. Two of the most exciting things for me related to mobile are the 5G rollout and the cell phone companies finally starting to increase their bandwidth to plan for tons of people streaming video, at an event, so that we won't get those bandwidth crunches and tower crunches where the towers are basically shut down during an event. And that's the reason I'm excited about that is because more and more will be able to be done just via an app or even in just a mobile website, versus having to pay for very expensive hardware that you're shipping or renting or dealing with logistically.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll into that. Two other areas of tech that I'm pretty. Oh, did you have something on to?
No, I was just going to agree with you on the 5G is going to change.
Yeah.
I mean, will change everything for everyone.
Two other areas I'm really excited about with event tech. One is some of the free project management tools that are out there. I mean, there's always a premium version, but there's so many great things. I'll probably mention this in every session that I'm doing, but if you're not on Slack, don't know what it is, check it out. It's an awesome free team communication tool. There's these virtual project management card style programs like Trello, like Basecamp, Asana, that are fantastic for assigning team members to different areas of your project and deadlines and automatic notifications, and they're all really good mobile-friendly apps that you should check out. And then on the flip side of that, oh man, I lost my train of thought now. there was a piece of event tech talking about AR and VR is very interesting too. There's a lot more integration going on, and 5G is a big part of that too, where you'll be able to hold your phone up and you guys all familiar with AR? Okay, cool. So that integration and actually doing that in the right way instead of just a tacky or cliche or trendy pop way is really exciting to me. Actually integrating that as part of the programming. Do any of you run B2B conferences or events or trade shows, something like that, where you need an app? All right, perfect. Won't need to dive into that then. So
I would just add to VR.
Yes.
I would just add one of the things that I was reading the other day that I thought was pretty exciting from someone who does some B2B stuff or is not just kind of outside in an open field is some development in virtual reality tours of venues. And how there are a lot of hotels and other places that are really trying to expand that technology of the virtual tour. So you're not just trying to spatial plan or look at a venue from just like a two-dimensional photo that gives you no context of spatial planning, how you can fit all these elements, because I know a lot of you guys are doing stuff on such a large scale that you need something that's going to fit that. And I think that there are strides being made in the virtual reality technology that supports like our ability to kind of spatial plan and not have to travel to that location and be able to say, okay, this will really fit the event need that I have.
Right.
So that's pretty exciting.
That's amazing.
I also can attest that Asana is a great technology too.
That's what you guys use.
Yeah, we use it as a team of assigning. You can upload files. It's very much like Trello, and they're very similar. But you can assign it to team members, and they can, give you updates on the progress. They can attach files, and it really integrates and it sends you reminders, trackers, all that good stuff.
That's awesome. Bringing low tech to slightly higher tech here. Has anyone moved recently from Microsoft Excel to Google Sheets and shareable online docs, or even Microsoft Office 360? You've noticed a noticeable change in team performance, actually being able to collaborate instead of passing. Remember when we all had to just pass versions back and forth? This stuff isn't brand new, but it's stuff that's still been slower to implement in the event world, and just doing that helps a ton. Does anyone from the audience want to contribute any other pieces of event tech you're excited about that we haven't talked about yet?
I have a question. It's not about new technology. Well, it is in some sense. So the gentleman who did his work on Lanai, and also the other two panelists. And this is my question or statement is, regarding the digital divide, I work on a property where I have 3 sets of customers. I have the customers that need to call you, gentlemen in the beautiful aloha shirt. I have that customer base where staff is required to have a 40-minute conversation. I also have a customer base from the other two panelists where very tech savvy. So as a panel, how do you address all of your audience when your event is not specific to a core group of users?
And are you thinking about, as you're thinking about that question, what technology are you thinking about as you're asking that?
Our organization uses multiple platforms, and I see it as being problematic because there's different styles of addressing our core audience group. It would be different if an event had all users on one system.
And is your core audience, is that for people who are, is that for attendees or is that for exhibitor sponsors?
Both sides.
Okay.
It can be for attendees and it can also be for exhibitors and vendors. Your talk is interesting because most events have a concentrated demographic that is accustomed to the type of technology that's required. But for a multi-generational event and multi-generational exhibitors, how would you address that as a panel?
Yeah, so we see, it's a great question, by the way, and you are not alone in asking that question. We talk with customers all the time who are saying the same thing, and they're thinking about it in, we also have a registration product, so we do get that from folks who are looking at taking their exhibitor registration online, and I know Michael does too. When we look at it through ticketing, what usually happens is the fears of alienating certain folks are usually, when they look back at it after the event, they realize that it wasn't as big of a hurdle as they had anticipated. That most people are open to an online purchase, and if they're not, then there are ways that they can do it. So if they still wanted to come in and buy a ticket or have tickets at outlets, you can do that. We always tell customers, you don't need to jump fully into the pool. Do what's comfortable for you. So if you just want to offer online and add that in addition to what you're doing, then great, and see how that feels and then do the next step. But what we do find is that when we look back with them after, the most of who they were worried about that they might alienate, that they're not. And I would just have a backup plan for some of those folks if they don't want to purchase online or that feels like too much. But I think what you'll find is that a lot of those folks will have other people in their lives who can help them with it too. And your staff can help them easily with it as well. And you, Michael, might have some thoughts on that as well.
I found, yes, I'm dealing with corporations that very simply can apply online. The old ladies that have challenges. One of the things, I'm a staff of one. So, if they call, it's me that returns their call or answers. And you just have to prepare yourself that, okay, I looked at who my vendors were, and before I even sent out my letters of that we were switching to this, I already knew who was going to be an issue. Because I know just from my vendors, because I know who they are, how much of a challenge they will have with it. It surprised me because a lot of my farmers had no problem. They went right on and applied, and it was no big deal. I use Event Hub, and a lot of people don't, a lot of my little crafty ladies, they don't want to use a credit card. But it gives you the option, they can mail a check in. And they worked with me because I kind of felt like I was a guinea pig, and I'm like, okay, I need this, and it's not doing this. And my vendors want to pay me $100 a month for 3 months, and how do I do that? Because everyone gets hit with, they got to pay their booth in March for the whole year, and that's when we start our applications. And so you have to get in the mindset of, okay, you're going to work with them and walk them through it, and you just have to say, don't worry, we're going to walk this through together. When you deal with them personally and not as just a number, they're much easier to deal with. The little lady that couldn't figure it out, she finally said, well, my grandson set it up, and I'm like, call me back when your grandson's home, and we'll talk with your grandson and walk you through it. And I knew, because to make my life easier, I had to do this, because the stress of everything was getting to me, and so it was easier to just brace myself for working with these people and getting through. Everyone did it, and did they all like it? No, but it's reality.
I was going to add to this. We moved our volunteer system completely online 5 years ago. The first year is rough because you've got your seniors or your non-tech people, and we had staff to support those people that first year, but we get no one calling them now. They all go online, and it's so much easier. And my staff person who has a full-time job who does this on the side, her life is so much easier. But it's that first year that's a little rough, but after that, it's 100%, and people expect it because the whole world is moving in that direction.
And I tell people, if this was Amazon, you would be able to buy your product with no questions.
Right.
So think of this as, it's just a little different than Amazon. And you just got to put them at ease at doing it. And that's why I set up my own account to walk through it, so I could figure out where they're stuck. And sometimes I'm like, you know what? I don't know what the hell's going on. I'll have to get back to you. And then I email Event Hub going, help! Answer the phone!
Only 5 exclamation points there. So that's an interesting point. So 2 things I want to clarify, and we'll pass it to you, Jen, as well, is that Gary sends out letters, right? He's educating people early and often and being very proactive about saying, this is what we're doing, this is how to do it, this is how to get help with it if you need that. So making sure you're planning that, since we're moving into the onboarding a little bit here, planning that into your process is really key, right? Make sure that you're actually telling people how to solve the problem for themselves. Either way, someone's going to be doing the work. It's either you doing it for everybody or them doing it for themselves on your self-serve platform. Can you share what volunteer software do you use?
We use, I gotta think about it. I'll tell you.
That's okay. And then I have one other ask for the audience is when you contribute, if you could just say your name and what organization you're with, we'd love to hear that and find out who our community is. Yes, Lucas.
My name's Lucas. I'm with Ribbon City. Like 6 or 7 years ago, we switched over. We have some events that have ticketing options, and we finally added online ticket sales for one of the events that we do. And we still had our, on-site sales, like somebody could come to one of our buildings or something like that and buy tickets. And over the last 6 years, this last October, when we had for 3 days for 4 hours a day, somebody could buy tickets. I think we only sold 20 tickets in person before the event kicked off. Because once the event kicks on, you can buy them on site.
Yep.
But everybody else is over those last years, we just keep shrinking that window that they're able to do it, and then it doesn't bog down our staff in the office and get sidetracked on those things. And then we just switched over this last year to using Event Hub for our vendor recruitment and stuff like that. And all we did was, here's the links to all the sites. And then there was if you really, because we do have a demographic that doesn't have bank accounts, so they're less likely to have credit cards, they pay by money order. If you really want to fill out a paper form, here's a link, and it takes them to another page, and then they can print it out and they can drop it off in our office. And I think we only had a couple of those this year versus, before it was, 100 vendors or something like that was all paper that we then had to enter again. And so it was a fairly seamless turnover for us.
That's fantastic. Yeah, people will gripe about it, but they'll do it because they want to be a part of your event. They'll gripe about everything because change is scary. And if they're sometime in older demographics are a bit more resistant to technology, and change is very scary when it's technology. But I can't tell you, when I used to do customer support calls myself when we were first starting out, how many times I would get on the phone, hey, I can't use this is too confusing. And then I say, okay, well, you want me to help with it? Oh yeah, hold on, let me just finish commenting on my grandkids' Facebook post here. Hold on one second. I can't use technology though, but hold on, let me pull up my iPhone and finish that out. So, Jen. Oh, yeah. What's that?
Volunteer thing with better impact.
Better impact, if you want a volunteer management idea, there you go.
Good idea. I produced Dia de los Muertos for Old Town here in San Diego last year, and am doing it again for this year. And taking it on last year, and they had a very similar paper antiquated system, and a lot of vendors, and they wanted to make more money. And we adopted Event Hub as the technology we use, and there was a lot of pushback, but I think, to echo everybody's point, is that we really made it approachable, and we didn't say no to anybody. If you wanted to print out something and mail it into us, of course you could, or a check or something, and there was language barriers, so there was a lot of barriers, and there was some apprehension to it, but we just made it, here's the technology, make it simple and easy, and if it's not something you can do and you want to go old school and print something out and send it to us, then we would happily accept you that way. And I think that we were just, kind of to echo everybody's point, we were just trying to be accepting as we move on, and I think more people will just be adopting year after year. And the greatest thing is that a few weeks after the event, we got an email through the platform from a vendor that was that event was so great, sign me up for next year. And he's already in the system. When we go live again in a few weeks, the whole infrastructure is there, so all the work that you do of setting up the event page and all the ticketing information, you basically just have to make tweaks and it's ready to go live again, which I'm really excited about. So.
That's fantastic. By the way, none of these participants were paid to be on this panel
No.
by Event Hub. I just want to say that. So this is a good, I want to pivot a bit, and then I'd love to talk about when you are looking at new technology, when you're seeing something you may want to implement, what are some of the considerations or the most important considerations, and who are the stakeholders that you factor in when you're making that decision and going through that analysis process?
Two things for us. As a small business owner and someone that launched my own business only 4 years ago, I am a team of two, and we do a number of events and very large scale events. So it comes down to manpower hours, human hours it's going to take to do something. And so that's why platforms, whether it's Event Hub or other technologies, end up being a great value, because I try to evaluate, okay, well, if I had to pay a person to do this versus the time it's going to save, that becomes a consideration. So there's that element, and then another element that's usually a great sell for my clients is what is the analytics or the data that we can capture from registration standpoints, knowing who's coming in from where, when they check in, are they registering before the event, and all those things. And if you even a couple years ago, I was like printing out name badges for like corporate events and doing stuff and paper, like checking in on paper in like 2019. It's insane. And not having any like data, like who actually came and all of those things. So I think utilizing those analytics and kind of being able to use that for sales or marketing, and like the examples you gave about the sponsorship element, and you really can't have hard data when it's the paper system. So it comes down to time spent and money, and then the data that you can get from those technologies.
It's very hard to make accurate decisions without data to back it up. It's like gut checks are a lottery draw sometimes, right? As much as you think maybe your instincts are right, but when you have actual statistics and data to back it up, it gives you so much more confidence when you're planning and decision making.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gary.
Can I ask a quick question about your Day of the Dead?
Yeah.
Are you fencing to create an admission point?
No, it's a free and open event. We do have a beer and spirits garden that's like a revenue standpoint, so we do fence that portion, but no, it's completely open, like all mayhem in Old Town. So. The best mayhem, I guess.
I have a follow-up question to a free event, and with the ticketing business, what are your points of measurement for a free event, like the Dear Los Montes?
That is a great question. We don't have an incredible amount of points of measurement from like the actual number of attendees. The points of measurements we just started gathering last year were related more to vendor. I mean, the client at Old Town Chamber of Commerce didn't really have like a lot of data to go off of like how many vendors and how much were they paid, and really be able to kind of draw out some statistics. And I'd like to see those numbers and math and stuff of like, here's the number of vendors and here's how we increased it and all those things. Like they didn't have that kind of information, and so we are moving towards that of like, you know, in year 2019, here's the number of vendors, here's what we charged, here's the number of discounts that we gave, and then 2020, here's what we're doing. I think that is a great question and something for us to explore from like a personal standpoint. I mean, we are like getting feedback from vendors whether or not it's successful, sales-wise and so forth, but we don't have a way that we're kind of integrating anything that we can kind of determine what that interaction is from an attendee standpoint. So very open to ideas for that.
So actually, something that's been very popular on the trade show and conference circuit for a few years now, but I haven't seen jump as much into the festival space, is beacon technology, right? And what beacon does, how many of you actually, when you're walking around for privacy, shut your GPS off nowadays? Like less than 5%, right? So beacon actually can pick up whatever cell phones are in proximity and unique cell phone IP addresses and count those for you. And one of the best ways we've seen this done to where you're not eating the cost of this technology. So I don't know if you've ever seen these. There's just little poles, almost look like stanchions, and you place them around your event. Some of the events that we've seen implement these will also build them into a sponsorship package so that you can also give more accurate ROI reporting or KPI, key performance indicator metrics for your bigger sponsorships when they come in and do an activation or some type of integration. So those are some of the. I know Beacon's A brand. Is it near field is NFC technology or something similar to that, John?
Yeah, there's a number of them, and it is more on the trade side. But the consumer side, you would be able to. What they're really looking at is to say, okay, if we have a session and it's in a stadium arena, they want to see where it's filling, how it's filling, how people are moving through the venues, at what times, where things are getting bottlenecked, what people are doing. So it's really interesting technology. And yeah, I haven't seen a lot of consumer events use it, but yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. I've had some discussions with folks where if you put it around, for example, your food concessions, your bars, what bars can you eliminate next year? Which ones should you double up on to help, because you had choke points last year where you missed sales because there was too long of a line, things like that. What are your vendor spots that you should be charging a premium for that maybe you didn't realize were premium because of the foot traffic they're drawing, and things like that. And then justifying the price that you put on like a front, what Main Street front of house sponsor activation, justifying the placement for that through these types of technologies is an interesting thing to consider.
Yeah, that's great.
One of my friends works in the garden center, and they were at a trade show recently, and the name tags were all chipped.
Yep.
And they were tracking when you left, what restaurants you were walking into in the city.
Wow.
You got one name badge. If you lost it, it was a $400 replacement to get in. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of scary. But from a tracking standpoint, they know they're keeping track of where you're going, if you're spending money in restaurants, if you're staying in hotels. But I think we're going to see more and more of that creepiness come into.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd be curious just to ask a quick audience poll. Is anybody currently looking at RFID technology? If anybody's looking at implementing RFID technology, it's definitely something that a lot of folks are talking about in our industry. No, so RFID would be a tag that so if you sold a ticket, then what you would do is you could either mail them or have them claim, typically it's a wristband, but it could be a badge, but typically it's a wristband, and people are using RFID. Some of the bigger festivals, Coachella, they're using them for access control, but then other folks are using them for a cashless event. So just curious if people have thought about that. It's very expensive, so you really have to have a captive enough audience that you can justify the costs on the RFID, because it takes a lot of hardware to manage. But it's interesting to see where it was going. Just curious if people had considered implementing that.
Like a triathlon or race.
Yeah, exactly.
Break a bib.
Yeah, exact same technology. But you can do cashless, where they can put the payments in the RFID band, and then you can track access points through the RFID.
I have an event that's way out in the sticks, and we run over the time frame. We try and figure in different, cables, cellular on wheels, and everything to expand our broadband reach and what we can do. And last year we brought in a new company that created a satellite net. It's a startup company. I'm just curious as to if you guys have a list of how many names and companies we can go to, because a lot of this technology, when you're tapping into Verizon's tower somewhere, we literally shut down,
The grid.
side of Temecula's.
How did that? How did that company do for you?
They did really well. They normally do emergency services, so when there's a fire somewhere, they go out and set up satellite grids there.
Wow.
And so they came in as their first time doing an event. They did really well. The company that has the contract with our park and wanted to maintain having that contract, but they have totally screwed us over. What can I say? 5 years in a row, promising that it was getting fixed, and each time never getting any better. But they actually started jamming.
Jamming. What
The
happened?
signal.
Well, 6 people on them, and at this point, with the Parks District, we're telling them they have to shut down their entire system. We can't. They're going to have to tap into ours, because it basically jammed us at our gates.
Oh.
And that's why I keep looking for more options and ways that we can get a better.
Yeah, I know. I think there are companies and startups that are pushing into that. So the company you brought in was not for everyone's public access. It was for your internal and staff production use. Is that
Actually,
correct?
no, we did have it. We had hotspots throughout. We've had a lot of issues with Uber Lyft because we had a one-way in, one-way out situation. And so we needed to have cell phone access, for people to call in the room and all that type of stuff. But we also have it throughout the area that we used. With an event, bottom line, if you can't stream what's happening, you're
Right.
not getting the FOMO out there, baby.
Yeah, you're not getting your impressions. Did you now? Would you be open to sharing the price point or the cost roughly?
Yeah, the company was IAS, and it was $40,000.
40,000.
And I think they also sponsored 20,000.
Okay. So it's not cheap, but if you have a big enough event, it's probably still cheaper than other options.
It's a 3-day
Is that
event.
price for 3 days? For the whole?
It's a
Yeah,
big
for the whole
chunk.
event.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of the one test. It's been a battle. I'm always looking for more sources, but at least
Yeah.
they did a great job, and I think they're coming back in this year, and we've learned a lot of lessons with them. But it's still one of those things, when you start incorporating RFP, and all those different things, what does that do to your bandwidth? What's going to happen, and how much more do we need? That's the kind of the technology that I'm at, trying to figure out how much more do I need, what do I have to do so that we can stream.
Sure. One of the things I'm always wondering too is, RFID is still a lot of hardware, and now that we have Apple Pay, and Google Pay, and Samsung Pay, and everything, is there even cashless payments are on your phone? I paid for coffee this morning with my phone. I just held it up to the receiver and it said, boom, near field NFC received, you have your coffee. So I have RFID is now built into your phone essentially, right? And I'm wondering, I'd love feedback too from the audience. Is that something where that was kind of like a fad that's now being replaced just by the mobile technology we have, or do you think that there's still some specific applications where that can make sense on its own?
I'm wanting to put it all on
And
the
the pen.
phone, actually, because
Yeah.
that's what, they come in, they're coming in with their phones, and it's just a matter of not crashing the system, and between the ticketing and everyone else that we have coming in.
I think it's as long as it's something that's easy to integrate, or it's not another app to download. I think that ends up becoming something that's a challenge. I don't
Yes.
want to have 20 million apps for every event I'm going to as an attendee. So having something that integrates with something like Apple Pay or something that you can use so easily, and not that it's complete app based for something so specific to that specific event, whether it's a food and wine festival or what have you.
Yeah, and it feels to me like the event organizer, there's two schools of thought on it. One is I truly want to create a better experience for my customer, and I want to make it easier for them with some kind of a cashless event. More often, it's really a revenue source for them, that if they can control the cash and have the cash be on one place, then typically what's not spent is harder to refund off of that wristband. And so they're usually able to keep that balance. And then additionally, they're able to control all those funds so they can then pay out the vendors accordingly. So maybe they have a split with the vendors, that they control the cash and can see what's going where. But I know, and this was old school, but we did it where you had script, that you bought the script, this was probably 20 years ago, and then they could wait in line and turn that script back in, the tickets in, and get paid back, but most of them didn't care, and ended up being pretty substantial as far as revenue to the event.
Ticketed bars are still a big thing too in California, I believe, right? Where you buy a ticket for your beers and then you go use the tickets, and if you have one left over, whatever.
Yeah, which as a customer, as an event attendee, it everybody hates it, but it's definitely profitable.
For sure.
Can I comment on the cashless? So
Yeah.
My name's Ryan. I own Afton Tickets. We integrate with RFID cashless bar, and what we found is when customers, so basically the way it works is customers, when they buy their ticket, link their credit card to their bracelet, and when they show up, it's like a 3-second process since they're pre-registered to get the bracelet. What we're finding is customers are spending 18 to 22% more at the bar, because it's basically like an open tab. So instead of them having cash and having to go to the ATM, it's almost just 4 beers in, you and your wife just start kind of dinging your bracelet. That's kind of something we found where, there's a cost to bring an RFID from the bar, but people drink so much more that it ends up making more money. And then, like you said, you're controlling all the beer sales of the vendors. So if vendors owe you 20% of sales, they're not hiding some sales off the books. But you're right, that is kind of like a new thing the last couple of years. It's really been optimized and more reliable than it was 5-6 years ago.
Right, that's great. So we've talked a good amount about how to determine, I think, if technology is the right fit for your event. Talked about some of the landscapes, some of the destinations. Makes sense to shift gears into actually, what are some best practices for how to onboard and how to implement new technology within your event? What are some ways to think about creating contingency plans so that you have a backup and a backup to the backup when things go nutty? Jen, you want to kick us off?
I would say we've used Event Hub in the last year, and then we also, about a month ago, I used BoomSet, which is more so for like name badge printing and like on-site registration for those corporate type of events. And the one like takeaway that I would kind of pass along is that it's going to take time for yourself or your team to kind of get the whole scope of the whatever that technology is, and just having like one call where you're going through it is not suffice. That we spent a lot of time with, whether it was Event Hub or BoomSet, basically going through each tutorial, troubleshooting, basically saying like, okay, if this happened, what would we do? Hooking everything up and testing and retesting and testing again. Same with Event Hub before we went even live, we were doing our own like, okay, if I wanted to buy at this, if I'm a vendor and I'm buying at this point, how do I do that? And if I'm uploading my health certificate, how do I do that? And I would just say carving out the time to get familiar, utilizing the expertise of the company with all their tutorials and all the support that they're having, and taking that time to really get so familiar with the product that you know it inside and out. When Betty calls you and she doesn't know what she's doing, like the technology as well as the producers or the creators of it. Or if something happens in the moment and something goes down, you know what to look for. You know whether or not it's a Wi-Fi issue, or if it's a hardwire issue, or if it's a paper issue, or whatever it is, you know it well enough to kind of identify what the problem is. So.
Great.
I've talked a lot about mine because, as I said, I'm a dummy, and if I can figure it out, then I figure most people can. But as Jen said, you need to spend the time. As I said, I use Event Hub. I probably spent a good 3 weeks just, I kept harassing Michael about the program and looking at it, and before I made the decision, and went through a tutorial with them in my office, not at a trade show, but also at trade shows. Because it was scary to me. It's like, okay, what am I doing? Am I gonna lose my vendors? Do I know what I'm doing? Are people gonna laugh at me because I don't know what the hell I'm going on? And so you just have to be sure of yourself and work through it. I set up my own account to figure out what each step was. So if a vendor called me and said, I can't get to this page, I don't see it, I know mentally because I need a visual. Now, granted, there's great tutorials, but your customers don't want to click anything and follow a tutorial. Also, make sure you have Michael's phone number on speed dial. Or the TicketSpice people on speed dial. But it's like, so if someone was stuck, I could go to the tutorials. I went through all the tutorials to see what they were doing, and I'm like, it spells it out step by step because that's what I need, because I'm stupid. I'm not, it does not just come to me. Ticket-wise, we've been very slow to do advanced sales. And we've done Eventbrite in the past, and we've jacked up prices, and we didn't have scanners, we collected tickets, and it's like, no, you can't bring us your phone because we don't know what to do with it, you gotta print off your thing, and it's like if they brought their phone, it's like, all right, go, we'll just trust you because, we're not that sophisticated. And so we've made that step, so now we do scan at the gates, which has made it easier. We still get lines that go down. When our ticketing system had an issue on Saturday, a busy day, I was the one that made the decision to switch to this, so I had no one to yell at but myself and my speed dial at Joel for help. And but we had a backup plan to run credit cards because, you know, what are you going to do? People have to use their credit cards at the gate, and you're not going to tell them once they get to the thing, well, our credit card system's down, so could you go to the ATM down at 7-Eleven and then come back and we'll take your money? But and so, you know, a few people came in and they gave us a card. We swiped it like we were charging them. We gave them their tickets and they went in just because. What else was I going to do? Go, oh, sorry, we're stupid. I made a mistake. Because you don't want your customer to see that there's a panic. You know, whatever's happening, you let them do. You know, we get long lines and we have my entertainers go with Ziploc bags with cash in the parking lot, and we sell tickets in the parking lot to people in line to speed up the line. But I don't want my customers standing in the long line trying to get into my event. You know, I don't control parking, but I have issues with our parking because the line getting into the parking lot goes down to the freeway. And then I hear people going, don't come to the festival, the parking is all screwed up and it takes you 45 minutes. And I'm thinking, they're calling their friends and telling people don't come. And so I have an issue with that. Okay, I'm gonna open up the gate for the secondary parking. I don't care if the fairgrounds doesn't have people to man it. It's my guests that need to get into my event. So you do have to have those plans in place just in case, because with technology, if you looked at the caucuses in Iowa, technology screws up. You know, but you know, it's gonna happen, there's gonna be issues, and that's part of technology, but you gotta have, you know, you gotta have a plan, you gotta have paper tickets to hand them if you don't have, you know, all that stuff. And, you know, it's been a challenge for us to make those changes, but, you know, it has to be done and people are accepting of it.
Yeah. One thing that you did there, which definitely stood out to me, is that you knew the critical areas that could fail, right? So when we're talking about implementing technology, determining what are the critical areas that will cause major issues for your event on the front end, and then plan under the assumption that those will fail. Yeah. Hope that they don't. Plan under the assumption they will, so that you have a backup plan if something happens.
And we use volunteers, a volunteer school group that occupy our gates and sell tickets. And you know, we've been on an old system, and some of them had done it before. So, you know, we went into the school, you know, before the festival, and trained those parents. Now, those parents, when you deal with volunteers, they don't have the same focus that you do. Right. You know, when they show up for a shift, they want to socialize with the mother and find out how soccer is. And I'm like, we got a line. You're supposed to be at this teller gate. Start collecting money. Stop the chit chat. You know, and so, but you have to remember that they're a volunteer, and you know, yes, they're making a lot of money, but you know, you have to kind of direct them and, but you know, training them on the new system so they knew what they were getting into, you know, really helps, just because, you know, we had to train ourselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. John?
Yeah, no, I think those are good things. So a couple things, and you're right, I mean, in being in technology, like we all do our best. Being in events, I know that what's built in an air-conditioned office doesn't always work in a hot, dusty, humid location. Like there's just impacts on things. And the biggest thing, like Gary mentioned, is the internet. That's the biggest choke point for any of us. So, and that's what happened there. They were using the public, they're using MiFi's, and it just got impacted. And so for us, when we're going to send a credit card authorization, it has to have a connection to be able to get the approval from the bank. Right. So like with our scanners, we build in technology, so if the internet completely drops, our scanners will work just fine. And then if it picks it up, then they'll re-update each other. But I think that finding out those kind of things, you know, what those places are where something could potentially fail is really good. As far as the initial onboarding, I think your system has some amazing functionality, a lot of advanced you know, technology. For us, we have an onboarding team, so what we would do is sit down with our customer, and I think in probably an hour we can get you up and running with a beautiful page you're excited about. My advice in implementation would be, one, just make sure the whole team's on board with it, and then have one champion. So what we find is there's one person who can champion it. We can have as many people in any of those meetings as you'd like, but having one person who's just excited about it and kind of own it is really helpful. And then I would say too, just do it early. So if you know you want to make a change or adopt online ticketing, do it early. That way you have plenty of time to make sure there's a page you're really proud of. You can set it up. We even encourage our customers to set up and put it live, even if it's months before people will buy tickets, because we give you the ability to close the page. People can put their email address in, and then as soon as that goes on, as soon as you actually go live, it'll automatically email all those folks and let them know that sales are live. So just give yourself plenty of time. Have one person who's going to champion it, and just make sure everybody's on board would be my three big pieces of advice for onboarding.
And make sure you're very knowledgeable on the technologies that are supporting that piece of technology that, you're whatever you need, if it's internet, if it's electricity or something like that, if it's trained professionals that are running this project or this piece of technology for you, make sure that that's in place ahead of time. The other thing, in addition, so I have 2 points that I talk about with it, and I'm going to go into much more depth with this in my team communication session tomorrow. But in addition to always having a backup, and when possible a backup to the backup plan, is to don't allow exceptions. So to me, what that means is know who your key stakeholders are, either internal team members or external folks like vendors and sponsors. Don't allow exceptions that break your new technology or your new system and make you hack it and do extra labor around it to work around that person. So if it's a team planning tool, enforce it and make sure that everyone on your team is committed to using that tool, right? The example, a classic would be, you send out an email, hey, we want to talk about this project via email. Someone calls you, it breaks the system. There's no communication chain there that you can actually plan with. So that's a very small example that's non-tech, but especially with technology, if you're making exceptions for everyone or this person or that person, A, they're going to tell people you'll allow people to do it their way, and that'll break the system with more people. And B, it makes you do a lot more work and take on a lot more friction, and there's more chances for things to break along the way because they're not using the main platform you're trying to install. Let's see. So this was a 2-hour session. I don't know about you guys, but my attention span is not 2 hours. I think it's 8 seconds now, according to Gary Vee or something like that. You might want to open it up to questions, or are there other main topics?
ROI too.
Yes, ROI. So how are you measuring ROI in technologies? And then also definitely freeform Q&A. I'd love to hear feedback from you guys. What other questions are burning from you now that we've gone through kind of our main spiels up here?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk quickly on ROI because it's something we're really passionate about. So I would say there's two schools of thought. One is that you are not currently selling tickets online, and the biggest value there's a few things, but the things that we see the biggest is data. So if you're not selling tickets online, you don't have that data from the customer. So the following year, if you have the email addresses for every customer, you push a button and invite them. So marketing budget can go way down if you're not selling tickets. The other thing too is what we see is the ability to share socially. If you're not selling tickets online, you're not building that advanced hype. And then we just can't control weather, we can't control lines, we can't control traffic on the freeway. But if they bought their ticket, they're going to go. And so you just cut all those things down and realize that there is an expense to sell tickets online. But what we see drastically is the net ROI improves and will offset any of those fees you have just with those three kind of things. And then the other thing too we think about is that, and we really got into this business just from our own frustration, that events are hard, you take all the risk, it's a lot of work, and then a ticketing company comes in and just takes a big chunk of fees. And so we just felt like, this isn't fair, and we wanted something different. So we do things really differently at TicketSpice. We're probably one of the more affordable solutions. We just charge 99 cents per ticket, and then you set the fee at whatever you want it to be. So we have a customer who they're doing probably about 400,000 registrants a year, and they just price it at Eventbrite's fees, and they're making almost $1 million a year just by making a switch to a ticketing provider. And so we just really see the world differently. And also when you're looking at, and this isn't a sales pitch on us, but when you're looking at ticketing providers, look at what you really need. Because a lot of times you're paying for, what we find is you're paying for things that you don't need. Do you need a website? Do you need some of the things? And really think about what are you trying to do with the core of ticketing, and then find a partner who's going to be the best fit and the best price for that.
Yep. And when it comes to your data, everyone says data, you need data. And then you're like, great, we have all this data, what do we do with it? So what data do you need to collect? What do you want to collect strategically? And what is your plan ahead of time to use that data for, right? What is the actual initiative or goal or momentum you're planning to use that data to help with? Have that understood in your strategic planning when you're going in so that you're collecting the right data and you can make sure it's accurate and vetted in along the way.
So my measurement is my peace of mind and my health. Because can I do this cheaper? Yes. Can I process the applications without paying a company? Yes, I've done it. But at some point you have to value your time. And you start looking at, we would mail out applications at the beginning to our mailing list, and each application was 79 cents in the mail to 500, applications. And then they come back, and then you process it, and you sit and you enter all that stuff. And I had to realize that my time is valuable. I'm a staff of one. I put together the whole festival until the week of the festival, and all my friends come together and make me look good. Also, I'm a nice guy. We would send out a coupon to our vendors if they apply early for the first month. They got a $40 discount because we go from year to year. We don't have a big cushion of we can rely on all of our extra money. So we need that money up front, and because as you all know, everything gets paid up front. By the time your festival comes, most of your bills, you've spent your money. So if it fails, what are you going to do? And so going to the event hub, it keeps track of money. And that was always a really bad thing for me because you can set a coupon code, and when that coupon code expires, it's gone. They can't enter it anymore. When in the past, they'd send it in 6 months later, and I'm a nice guy going, okay, well, they sent me their application, they've already sent me the check and the coupon, so, am I going to go back to them and go, you know what, that coupon's not good anymore, you still owe me $40. No, I wouldn't do that. But now with a coupon code, it's gone. So when they go in and apply, it's not available, and so I save money. With tickets, we print postcards. We do 50,000 postcards with a coupon on it. When we had them at the state fair, I would have a punch, and I would punch 3,000 cards that were in the Placer County booth. So when they came back in November, I'd know that punch was from the state fair. Well, by going to a ticketing company, there's a code on that card that if they entered it, then I knew where that code was coming from and they got a discount. And we offered an early discount, and as it got closer, we cut the discount down to $2. And so there was no mistaking. If they tried to enter that $3 code, it wasn't existent anymore, and so then they had to go for the $2. So accountability of making me accountable to what is being offered and that it's fair to everybody, and you can keep track of that. I don't have to sit there after the festival for the month of December counting cards that were returned and go, this has a star punch, this has a circle, this has the Martha Stewart happy face. Because I'm really weird about numbers. I want to know how many of my cards come back and where they came from, because if I'm handing out 10,000 cards at the state fair and none of them are coming back, then I want to know, maybe I don't need to print all those and get them to the state fair. But if I see that, 10% of the cards we handed out at the state fair are coming back 6 months later, I'm like, stupid people hang on to a $2 coupon for 6 months? I mean, it's insane. So last year we have this really crazy St. Patrick's Day parade in Auburn. There's no real grouping of it, organization. You just show up, the parade starts at 5:17, And it goes through town. Sometimes it goes through at 30 miles an hour. They don't close the streets. And so my last name's Gillian. I'm a little Irish. And so I love this parade because there's no thought. You know, all the other parades, you have to spend weeks building a float. We get a flatbed, we get St. Patrick's Day stuff, our Mandarin orange. Well, James, who has the Valley Decorating, last year had these pom-poms. I thought, how cute are these pom-poms? Everyone's like, why are you ordering pom-poms? So they were orange and green, which Mandarins are orange and we have green, and it's also kind of Irish colors. But he had a little token on the end of them to punch out to save $2 off admission. So we got 500 of these pom-poms to throw from the float. Pom-poms don't throw from a float. So kids were getting close to being run over because the pom-poms just went down. Everyone wanted these pom-poms. So that was a little bit of a scary thing.
But they'll never forget that experience.
When they don't close the streets and cars are coming all different directions. But we had, out of the 500, now this was in March, we had 15 tokens redeemed in November. I'm like, these people are stupid because there's $2 coupons everywhere, but they brought those little coupons from that pom-pom. But people talked about, for weeks after, they talked about those pom-poms in town. People love those stupid pom-poms. You know, they cost me like 15, 20 cents. And it was like, what a bargain to do. It was cheaper than going through Oriental Trader to get stuff to hand out. So it's just those little things that, you know, you look at it. But the fact of, it kept track, you know, the application program kept track of all my money. It sent out emails reminding people that they needed to pay. So when it came time to the festival, normally I'd have 10 or 15 vendors that hadn't paid, and they're collecting it as they check in. And there was only 3 of people that I knew.
Sorry, this isn't related to you. It was back to the comment about the ticket sales and the database and information and stuff like that. Do you know people that are utilizing Facebook's like duplicate audience option where you can upload your database? That's one, like I went to a seminar Facebook did about it, and they dabbled on it super like comically, but they didn't really get into the meat of it. It seems super, you know, kind of appealing.
Yeah, so Facebook, it's called Facebook's lookalike audience. And so what you could do in our system is you just download the email addresses from whatever event it is, you upload it in Facebook, and they take their algorithm and they find people who are similar. So what's nice too with probably any platform, but with ours, all you do is you drop your Facebook pixel into that ticketing page. It's really simple to do, and then it'll track all of those for you. So you'll know exactly how that campaign did. And you could, what I would recommend if you're doing Facebook, you probably want to do a couple things. You want to do the lookalike audience, and then you also want to do a remarketing campaign. So you probably would want to, even now, Facebook will give you a pixel that you can put on your website. And then what you would do, and we can help you with this too, is then you'll set a remarketing campaign that will visit them, in Facebook with your ad. And then that ad, when it clicks through to us, it'll then track for you the actual conversions, how much money you have made versus how much you spent. There's some really neat integrations there with Facebook. We're working with a partner on some really advanced Facebook integration, so happy to chat about some stuff they're doing as well. But so in Facebook, what I would do is do every approach you can. So do the remarketing, and they'll just give you a pixel. And I'm happy to give you a card and can put you in touch with some people who are really good at it, who are actually local in Orange County. But they'll give you a pixel you put on your website. So you'll start tracking that. And that's just going to run. And anytime somebody visits your site, that pixel is going to fire and it's going to add them as somebody who's interested. And then they'll remarket to those people on Facebook. So when they're on Facebook, they'll start seeing your ads in their feed because of that. So that's the remarketing. But then the lookalike, you can take whatever audience data you have. So if it's people who sign up for a newsletter, if it's people who've purchased tickets, wherever you have that data, you can just upload those emails. And then the more you have, the better your matches you're going to get. But they have really smart algorithms that then will go look at the commonalities between all of those folks and see if they can target new folks who might be prospective customers. Yeah.
There's a bunch of good YouTube videos too if you want a quick primer on that. And then Facebook has a whole creator studio now that has a bunch of help tutorials built in there. You can even generate your own 15-second ads through a little wizard, uploading your assets, things like that.
You know,
assets.
I would probably target all of that too. That Facebook and Google has a great remarketing program too. So if you're going to put the Facebook pixel, put the Google pixel on your site too. And then as people visit your site, Google around the web has ad space that they will then put your ad. So they might be on CNN, but they're going to see your festival ad there. So they'll just follow that person based on remarketing. But it's good to put those pixels on now so you can start getting that traffic built up.
Yeah, you guys know how you never remember to log out of Facebook when you're done using it on your computer? That's how the pixel works. When you're logged in the background, it tracks everywhere you go on the web, and then it can retarget you with ads based on that. Thanks very much, guys. We're going to give you some time back. Thank you very, very much. If you have any other follow-up questions, we're all here, I think, for much of today. And thanks for coming out, guys. Appreciate it.